Hello YouTube, and it's that time again. We're going to talk about the practicality of Soresu, the third form of lightsaber combat. Unfortunately, Soresu, in my opinion, is not really a martial arts. It is a tactic by Jedi to move and evade. It's to move and evade and block or deflect any attack that's sent to him. I believe it was not born from Makashi. Hold on. But I do believe it was born from Shicho. I believe it was born during the time that when a Shicho master attempted to stand their ground and deflect whatever blast bolts they could that the Jedi took it to the next step. Makashi is more of evade and counter. You know, Soresu is basically a Jedi just going into the defense mode and trying to avoid every attack that's, coming at them. Yeah, I know this video isn't coming in good quality, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Now, Soresu, again, I believe was born from Shicho, not Makashi. The idea is for the Jedi to give themselves to the Force and allow them to predict any attack that's coming towards them. They used basically the Force foresight to predict each move. However, it's only limited to what move is coming towards them, not necessarily the outcome of said move after said move is done. The object is to use the lightsaber to create a barrier to protect them from all harm if possible. There's no real martial arts mixture this comes from. Soresu is Soresu. It's a tactic, not a martial arts. So I cannot give you any videos on what it would be like. It simply banks itself on just sitting out and waiting it out until the person gets frustrated, much like Makashi, and screws up. That or the person becomes fatigued and retreats. Those are only two outcomes. Now, to get right down to it, Soresu is a very dexterity and agile based tactic. It requires the Jedi to be of medium build to block most blows, but also be at a weight set that still allows for them to duck, dodge, and bob and weave, but also strong enough to pair and block any attacks that come their way. Obi-Wan said to be able to block 20 shooters. He may or may not be the fastest Soresu. I'm still debating on that because I have to know how fast blaster bolts are. But if I was to say, if it was about the same speed as a bullet, he can block over 20 bullets worth per second of blaster bolts. I wouldn't have to figure that number out, but it would be in the Mach speeds, which is not all that unheard of. Darth Bane was able to use Soresu to block rain drops of rain for up to for several minutes. If you look up Dante versus Virgil of Devil May Cry 3, someone did the math to that, and it was noted that Dante and Virgil combined did Mach 340. And this is only Mach 340 because both the person had to multiply the speeds. They were both going together. I believe it was just Dante would probably be 170, Mach 170. If that's the case, that's how fast Bane was going when he was using Soresu in the rain to prevent himself from being wet. If that's the case, Bane would probably be the true master of Soresu, as no one has gone any faster than he has. As I said, it's agile. It's also, it requires a little bit of footwork to do, because you have to be able to move about to prevent attacks. Like I said, you're also bobbing and weaving. You're not just taking the full brunt of the attack. I mean, there isn't much to say except for the weaknesses, which I'm going to end my video on afterwards. But weakness of Soresu is that it lacks attacks of its own. It has to borrow attacks from other martial arts styles out there. Again, the other weakness is, again, it's not a martial arts, it's a tactic. And because of that, it's basically learning how to take your lightsaber to the fullest when on the defense mode and blocking everything that comes your way. The third weakness is fatigue. Your opponents may fatigue, but so will you. You can only block for so long until someone sees a pattern or is able to peel away your defense, like with Makashi, which is able to get around one's defense to poke at you. You have to have a fair amount of strength to prevent someone from easily peeling your defense with a Shien blow, or peeling away at your defense the same way Count Dooku did Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's these other weaknesses, oftentimes because Soresu is often used with two hands into just one, the person has forced to stand their ground. Especially when in lightsaber combat, where two-handed swings are prevalent. So the person has limited footwork when face to face with another combatant, especially in melee. The fourth still has to do with the footwork, in which if a Soresu master is pinned down, they themselves are trapped in that stance until they fatigue. So they're unable to move. If they're surrounded by 20 shooters and they're able to block 20 shooters, they will have to stand in that area until those 20 shooters either run out of ammo, or until the Soresu master basically fatigues out from trying to block all those blaster bolts. This makes them ineffective in rejoining their allies or escaping. And the fifth and final one is that a Soresu master is not necessarily guaranteed to be good in force-based abilities. Zatanna was, but Obi-Wan Kenobi wasn't. But it's the fact that if one were to have incredible force-based powers, they could break the guard of a the physical guard of a Soresu master. And if the Soresu master had no force abilities to shield himself from force-based attacks, then it was pretty much any user with a high force-based ability could easily put you down with little effort. This is again what Count Dooku did to Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan was able to could block any physical attack, but once Count Dooku started using his force-based abilities, Obi-Wan couldn't do anything. It was not the first time this has happened to him. So with that being said, Soresu, that concludes the Soresu video.